And with me now is Walter Dorn, Professor of Defense Studies at the Royal Military College of Canada. Professor, first off, thank you for being here. Now, Russia's latest attack on Ukraine, how intense was that?
This was a very intense attack, one of the most intense of since the 1,000 days of the war already. There were 120 missiles, 90 drones, and a lot of those drones are used as decoys to help the missiles get through. And as you suggested, some 30 got through and did tremendous damage to the infrastructure and also caused civilian fatalities.
This seemed to focus on energy infrastructure. Why target that?
I think it's a tactic, a very vicious tactic that the Russians are using. It affects both the military and defense production, as well as civilians. So I think that there's a part of it, because some of those targets are not military targets, that Russia wants to punish the Ukrainians for resisting. At the same time, there are a lot of the energy facilities that are used for the defense industry in Ukraine, so they could be considered a legitimate military target, but certainly not all of them.
At this point in time, what does this type of escalation mean for the war? Do you see Ukraine retaliating? Can it retaliate?
Yes, Ukraine is retaliating, and they sent some 40 drones to Moscow in recent days. And they're showing that they can give back to Russia a portion of what Russia is doing, although, of course, the Ukrainians will be much more careful about their target selection, and they will try to abide by international humanitarian law. But the Ukrainians will show that there's the very lethal force that can be applied to Russia, so that in this war where it looks like Putin only understands the use of force, the language of force, that the Ukrainians are showing that they have some backbone, not only to withstand the attacks, but also to send some punches Putin's way.
Now, Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelensky, says that the war would end sooner or will end sooner with Trump as president. What do you make of that?
I think it's true that President Trump will push the Ukrainians to a settlement. It won't be as favorable to the Ukrainians as, say, if the current administration of Joe Biden was in power, or a Democratic alternative. But the Ukrainians will probably have to give up some territory. Now, I argue that they should never give up any of their territory or sovereignty as legally. But what they can do is recognize Russian control. They recognize the territories that Russia has under its control, and then do some swaps. For instance, if the Ukrainians still have forces in Kursk inside Russia, they could trade that for some territories inside Donbass or in Zaporizhia or Kherson Oblasts. So I think President Trump is going to force really put a lot of pressure on Ukraine to come to the negotiating table and to come to a settlement.
When do you see that happening?
Well, President Trump says it'll be on day one of his administration, so January 24th, 2025. But I don't see the negotiations concluding within months, probably by the end of 2025.
All right, that is our time. We will have to leave it there. Professor, thank you very much for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Renee.
That's Walter Dorn, Professor of Defense Studies at the Royal Military College of Canada.